Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I like helping people using a spiritual perspective. So today guys, I wanted to talk to you about signs of a false twin frame. I wanted to talk to you about being barely able to speak proper English. No, I wanted to be able to talk to you guys about false twin flame relationships and what the signs are and why you're in one. And this would be the second part of a video that I've done about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Okay, and that video that I did got a lot of views, a lot of likes, a lot of comments and stuff. So seeing as that was the most popular video that I've done, I figured recently maybe I could do like a part 2 and do 5 or 6 more signs along with a different explanation about why the false twin flame comes into your life. So these signs and the different sort of why of it all they differ from the original video that I've done. These are new things that I've come up with. I mean, I didn't make them up. They're just things that I've noticed, other different signs that I didn't touch upon in the first video that I've made. So I'm hoping that this video will sort of, help you discover other possible signs that, maybe you're in a false twin flame relationship. Maybe you are part of a connection that just isn't healthy, right? Because it's important to remember that the labels, while they help us distinguish what's presently working and what isn't presently working, at the end of the day, they actually are very distracting, right? So it's not too important whether or not you think somebody's your false twin or your real twin. The idea is all of these signs that I'm going to be mentioning, as well as the ones in the first video, are great indicators of basically a toxic connection, okay? Because this is what this all comes down to. It really comes down to toxicity. So there's a lot of people out there who have the idea that there's no such thing as false twin flames and that it's just somebody that isn't your twin, which is exactly what a false twin is. I don't really understand the need to distinguish, but the idea is a false twin is, yes, not your twin flame. So you can label it or not label it, it doesn't matter. But these will be some good signs, I think, that will help you if you seem to be stuck in some type of karmic connection. Again, something maybe narcissistic, something that's really draining your energy, something that you've mistook for a twin flame relationship, because a lot of us do mistake unhealthy relationships, especially in the spiritual journey, with something called a twin flame relationship, because we believe that our emotions are validated despite the external and the internal way that we feel about the connection and how it's presenting itself. So a lot of us get very confused trying to justify toxic connections with a spiritual label, and it's a trap that a lot of us fall in. It's a trap that I fell into, and it's something that really, regardless of the labels, a lot of people can fall into, and regardless of spirituality or not. Trying to justify toxic connection is something that humans have been doing for quite a long time. So without further ado, let's get into it. I've already wasted 3 minutes, so let's get into it here. And I'll go with the first sign, right? So the first sign that you may be experiencing a false twin flame relationship, I'm going to get the word flame out properly by the end of this video, I promise. One of the first ways that you might be experiencing this is that the connection is highly sexual. So if not completely sexual, mostly sexual and draining. So what that obviously looks like is a connection that is based just primarily in the physical, meaning that that when they think about you, or even the way that you think about them, that there's this highly sexual connection, that there's just this large sexual link that's existing between the two of you, and that it actually drains you, okay? Now, draining you could look different in different sort of scenarios. Obviously, the more classical way of being drained is to have very little energy, right? And you'll definitely notice that within a false twin flame relationship. I remember that sort of dynamic that I was in. Very briefly, it uplifted me, and then it was followed by years, especially months after, of just not having enough energy, of feeling very drained, feeling like I was not, that I feel like I wasn't with the energy that I was previously before meeting them, right? I felt like things were just falling apart within my own, like, energetic sphere. Like, I just didn't have the energy to do things, whether or not that was to eat healthy or take care of myself, exercise, to do the passions that I really wanted to do. Most of my energy went towards that connection, okay? And so that's the draining part, is the most of your energy, whether that's emotional or spiritual, is going towards this person, whether it's a man or a woman or an otter. It's going towards this person. And so that idea limits you and it blocks you from expanding because you're putting all your energy towards something. So it's naturally draining you, and it's kind of too late before you even notice, right? One day you just kind of wake up and you're like, holy shit, like I'm already attached to this person in a very unhealthy way. And it becomes very hard to notice that. And again, it's almost too late when you do. I'm looking at Alexa because she's just turned on for no apparent reason. I don't trust her. Anyway, the connection, again, highly sexual. So most of the energy that's going in there is fueling the sacral chakra, or to even keep it in a more grounded way, fueling the creative energy between you two. So again, highly, highly sexual. Not a lot of unconditional spiritual love, mostly just a lot of physical feelings for each other that, again, cause you to have less energy in the long run, okay? So, second sign, which I have written down here, is you act out of character, okay? So acting out of character is anything that you know is not who you are authentically as an individual, okay? Sometimes, you're with people and maybe you have a little bit too much to drink, or maybe you have one too much, chocolate bars, or, sometimes you say things that aren't right, and maybe you're getting caught up in the excitement of what you're going through at any given moment. You're with your friends and you go to Las Vegas. Maybe you slightly act a little bit more, a little bit different. Maybe you're intoxicated. Maybe you're just having a really good time. It really, there's a difference though between having a good time and acting like more of something or a little bit less of something than to completely be a twisted version of yourself. Okay, so let's revert that back to my own life to give you a little bit of an example. And this is sort of embarrassing, but I remember in the false twin flame relationship, I remembered where she worked, and of course where she worked, I would sort of show up a lot, and I would almost like wait for her to get out of work to see if there was a possibility of seeing her, right? Like it was very like creepy behavior, quite frankly, but it was really like out of character. Like I remembered thinking like this is the exact feeling of what it was like to be in a narcissistic relationship. So I remember that before her. I remember what it was like to feel this sort of desperation, this need. And I just remember sitting in the parking lot of where she worked and thinking like this is so out of character, and I just had to drive away because it made me feel very like disgusted and ashamed with myself. And that's essentially what happens, right? If you're within this kind of connection, a lot of the time you feel very distant from the core of who you're supposed to be. Okay, so if you find yourself in a relationship with this sort of toxicity, this false twin flame relationship, you're going to find yourself completely acting out of character. Okay, again, not little small things, not, maybe you've, again, like it doesn't have to be, maybe you've had a little bit too much to eat, okay, but it really starts to act out of character when you're doing things that do not resonate with you, when you're hurting yourself for long periods of time, where you find yourself becoming more negative, maybe you're gaining a lot of weight, right? There's just a sense of unhappiness with the way that you're living your life, okay? And again, these things sort of tend to sneak up on you before you even realize it. It seems like it's too late, and the next thing you know, you already have formed this very this desperate need for them, okay? And that's another sign that it's just acting out of character. Do you think that the character that is inherent within you is somebody that really needs all of that desperation, that needs to covet something so desperately, that you need to be in a constant state of need, a constant state of survival? Because that's really what they put you in. They put you into a state of survival rather than living your life properly. You become a survivor, okay, and you act out of desperation. So that is step or sign number 2. I don't know why I said step. Sign number 2. This is not Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no steps. All right. So 3. You keep repeating karmic cycles as long as you're connected to them. Okay. So this doesn't mean that you have to be in a relationship with them to sort of play out these karmic cycles. It means energetically. Okay. At the very base of the connection, you are energetically connected to them, and so you, for as long as you know them, play out karmic cycles. So whether or not this looks like constantly having to move around and find a sense of peace within yourself, which is how it manifested for me. I had to constantly travel and go because the connection made me feel a certain kind of way, and I'll get into that later on. But my karmic cycles kept playing out. But for other people, it could be unhealthy friendships, codependencies, reliance on other people, issues with your diet, issues with drugs, classic normal things, right? From anywhere from addictions to escapisms to just the way you handle yourself and treat yourself, right? Any karmic cycle could, of course, be playing out in your career, your job, the way that you handle situations, okay? So your emotions really is what it comes down to. So you play out these karmic cycles as long as you're attached to them, Okay, so you may notice that for as long as you've known them, let's just say it's been a year, you seem to keep playing out this cycle of emotions. Okay, this cycle of like maybe like starting something and giving up, or trying to be better and then constantly failing, or having all these anger issues and exploding. And so you just keep repeating different scenarios and different things that you keep bringing back into your life. Okay, and there's many different ways of dealing with that, and many different ways of looking at that. That isn't the point of this video. But let's just keep it simple and say that the point of those karmic cycles is not that you are inherently doing anything incorrectly. It's the way that you relate to those cycles within your own brain. So if you constantly see them as a destruction of yourself, you kind of keep playing them out until you get a lesson, which is usually in compassion. Okay, and because the false twin flame relationship is one that doesn't have a lot of compassion and mostly just has these sexual feelings, so again, physically based and not heart centered, you are playing out the same cycles without giving yourself what you need. And these usually start in large quantities when you meet this false twin. And you might have had these karmic cycles your whole life. Usually we do, but what happens is when you meet this person, it sort of illuminates them and sort of brings them all up to the surface at once, and you kind of just like have to handle all of it very incredibly quickly. And it becomes overwhelming, and you might notice like it sets you down a certain path in which these cycles are really like becoming very apparent to you, and they're stopping you from great amounts of success. So again, I mentioned that the cycle that my false twin started for me was to go away. Was to basically like I had to like get away. Like I became like a not like a hippie, but I basically like I became ungrounded. I like became very floaty and just started going all over the place and doing all this different shit and seeing what would happen, seeing what would work. I just basically it was chaotic, right? And despite whatever successes or failures I experienced, there was always this karmic cycle relating back to her, right? Back to the root of where really what it was, okay? And since I met her, my tailbone pain started to hurt, right? And that's associated with the root chakra, which is a sense of feeling safe. So since I met her, the karmic cycle that started was to push me into like all these like different scenarios where I was constantly going and going and going and not being able to slow down and feel safe. So she didn't make me feel safe in my body. Again, draining physical connections, purely sexual, not a lot of compassion, wasn't relating to my scenarios in a healthy way. So the root chakra was affected because fundamentally she illuminated the things that were already there. I never really felt safe as a kid, but then she made these cycles appear extremely, like extremely quickly and in large quantities, and just keep repeating for as long as I was attached to her, right? So I think you get the point there. So number 4, and this will be a pretty quick one, they invade your dreams and confuse you. Okay, so false twins will invade your dreams on a pretty semi to regular basis. Okay, maybe you only have dreams about them 3 times a month, maybe you have them 3 times a week. But the idea is they come into your brain and you're left wondering what the hell that dream meant. You're constantly searching up meanings, trying to figure it out, draining your energy once more, going back to the first sign that I gave you. And in a way, it almost makes you more attached to them because you're trying to figure things out. You're giving more of your mental energy to try to use your analytical brain to figure this out. And it really just gives them more of that energy. You're just kind of giving it away. And in a sense, a lot of times what happens is you end up sort of looking up them. Like, say, if you've told yourself, all right, I'm not checking on their social media, any of that stuff, and you have a dream about them that's so powerful where they tell you something like, oh, come check on my social media because, your brain can work like that. And then you do, and it's the same old story, same old bullshit. Maybe it's a picture of them with their boyfriend or their husband or their girlfriend or whatever, and it just leaves you feeling like shit. And so they invade those dreams and they confuse you, and it makes you lose more of your energy. Okay, so you might notice that happens from time to time still to me, but you may notice that yourself. Okay, so number 5 is at least 3 years have passed with no signs of change, and I gave you guys 3 years just as a healthy number. Okay, maybe even 2 it could take you, and maybe 4, really anywhere from there. But from anywhere from 2 to 4 really should be a good way of looking to see if that person is really capable of change. But I give you guys 3 years. It's been 3 years since I was in that sort of energetic relationship, I guess. It was never really a relationship, but since I met them the last time I saw her, and it's been 3 years. And so I look back of those 3 years, that cycle, 2018 is really when I started this journey. Let's say May 2018, and it's what day is September something 2021, right? So it's been about 2.5, 3 years, right? So it has to be at least 3 years for you to understand that they are not going to change. They're not awakening. They're not going through anything spiritual. They're not connecting to you. It's the same old thing. All these other signs are still apparent, as well as the first video that I ever did. The connections just not happening. There is just a sense of loss and grief, and there's no joy, no happiness present within this connection. Okay, so those signs, all of it coupled, 3 years is usually a good mark for you to know whether or not somebody's capable of getting to your level. Okay, and it's a good amount of time for you to be able to let go of something, to let go of a cycle. Okay, 3 years is a pretty good time to be like, to completely change from one side of your life to another. 3 years is usually a good time to do that. Okay, just a healthy kind of number, I think. So anyway, let's go on to number 6, and then I'll talk about why this happens, the new reason that I've come up with for why, different than the original video that I've done. So with number 6, a pit in your heart exists as a result of the connection. So you can feel that right there in your heart space, and I think you guys know what I'm talking about. It's that feeling of a void, that feeling of depression, anxiety, anxiousness, the feeling like you can't be still, that there's just something that is really hurting you and causing you a great deal of grief and depression, and you really don't know what to do with that, okay? And so they cause you a great deal of emotional pain on a very cosmic scale, okay? It's at a soul level. There's this deep pit that exists within your chest, and that's that feeling that I was alluding to earlier in the video. Was that's essentially kind of what really happened, like the way that she made me feel, especially when I was going on all these things, these journeys and all this different stuff, is I just felt like this constant pit, like I couldn't be still, like I couldn't be where I was. Like upon meeting her, like shortly after, maybe months, 2 to 3, there was just like this pit inside of my chest, my heart space that I couldn't get rid of. I couldn't fill with anything. Like I didn't register at the time what that was, what that meant. And so I kept trying to go different places to try and fill that hole, to get these different experiences of what I thought at the time, with good intentions, would actually help me fill that role, which I now realize is not really helpful. That pit is something else entirely different, and this is what I'll get into. So the reason why you're in a false twin flame relationship, or why you might have been, is to illuminate that pit, to illuminate it. You see, at some point in our childhood, at some point in our life, we have dug out a part of ourselves, just like with a scoop, an ice cream scoop, we just dug it out, maybe 3 or 4 scoops, and tossed it away. Okay, didn't even eat the ice cream, just tossed it away. And that really ended up leaving a great deep depression within us, within you. And what happens is the rest of you might have been solid rock, okay? But you dug that pit out, and then at some point, because you needed to survive as a kid, you needed to grow up, you needed to keep going, you filled it with sand, okay? Not as solid as rock, and pretty easily to spill out. And once you kind of scoop it out, it's all gone, okay? So everything else was rock, it was solidified, and you just filled it with something that was less than rock, okay? So, you know, you can think about it like sand, you can think about it like anything else. You can put Jello in there, I don't care. Put chocolate, doesn't matter. The metaphor is the metaphor, right? Put sand in there, and so you feel like you had that hole filled, okay? That's my point. And lo and behold, you meet this false twin, and all the sand comes back out. Whatever you filled that hole with is now gone again. It's almost like, again, you know, you look at them as they're the ones that scooped out a hole within you, and so you think to yourself, it's their fault, they're the responsible one for this, they made me feel this way. But really that hole, that depression was always there. And so what happens is they come into your life to illuminate it, and that's why you feel this way upon meeting them. And all these sort of desperations, and this pit, and this karma, and this pain, and this great feeling. And that's why we associate it with a twin flame relationship, because, oh my God, nobody's ever made us feel this way. Except the things that they're making us feel isn't compassion and love and growth and strength and becoming a better version of ourselves and attracting all our manifestations into just very quickly and making us a better spiritual enlightened person. Instead, it makes us look at ourselves as a lot of shadow work, it's a lot of pain, it's a lot of, a lot of things that are done out of desperation. It makes us play out these karmic cycles. We have these invading dreams and things like that. So we associate it incorrectly because of the way we feel. We think that the more we feel about something, that justifies a certain kind of label, or that's you could consider the truth. But that's not usually the case, okay? Just because you feel very strongly towards something doesn't mean that you have made a proper judgment about it. That's not what it all means at all. Your emotions tell you things. And so what that tells you is that, oh, this person has illuminated something that has always been a hole. I just filled it up with something less than solid. And that's why it came out. That's why that it's so powerful upon meeting them, that there's this huge gap and this huge hole. Because I can tell you something from experience, when you truly meet somebody that you love, whether it's a friend, a romantic partner, a job, a passion, you never feel separate from it. Not once. Not once do you ever feel separate from it. Okay? There may be a physical separation, absolutely, but you never feel separate from it. Okay? I've met a woman in my life who I never once felt separate from, nor do I feel separate from now, even if I'm physically separate. I do not have a relationship with like the passions that I have, like music or writing. I never feel separate from it. It never feels like it's always somewhere else, like I have to constantly grab for it. It's just there. Now I may physically be separate from it sometimes. Sometimes I didn't have the right equipment. Sometimes I didn't feel like doing it. But the passion and the love for that was always there, okay? And there's been plenty of friends like that too. I never felt separate from them. Like, you ever had a friend where you might not see them for 2 or 3 years and you can pick back up right where you left off, right? I have friends like that in my life, okay? And the point is that you won't feel a great separation with somebody that you truly know is with you. But the false twin, it will always feel like a constant separation, emotionally, spiritually, and physically will be there as well, okay? So I hope these signs all helped you. I hope that reason why also maybe gave you a little bit of an insight into what's going on. We basically have done that to ourselves at some point, unconsciously. Don't blame yourself, but it's our responsibility to try and fill that hole back up and to receive what we need to get that to a solid state again. And we can find that within ourselves, and the more that we look for to the false twin to get that done for us, we often end up in the very same exact position that we've been trying to avoid. Okay, so I hope you guys stuck through the whole video and me stuttering my words a lot. It was a bad day for words apparently, but I do hope that this video was able to help you guys. I hope that the part 2 was a little bit different than part 1, and I hope you guys have an enjoyable Wednesday. Okay, it's raining here, so I'm gonna get some hot chocolate, put some Kahlua in it, and then pretend to like alcohol. So, all right, guys, we'll talk soon. Have a good day. Bye bye.